everybody. This is Lovely with the Financial Griot podcast with a shorts. I don't even know who's doing the shorts, but I believe it's Lauren. So we're just going to start off. This is going to ride out. Alainta's here with me. Lawrence is here. Let's get it. It's a short. Hopefully we'll find out.
You know what, Alainta, go ahead, because you're trying to wrap us up already in the short. It's like 2 minutes in. Let's go.
I'm just like, bring on.
Bring it out. Who's gonna? Okay, we're talking about men and proposing, specifically Black men. Let's just call it what it is. I'm not gonna go into all the details about all the other groups because I'm just gonna call it specifically Black men. I don't know a lot of other guys doing it differently, whatnot. So I'm just gonna talk about what I know. When it comes to marriage, a lot of guys, we don't know what the other side entails, right? That's the first thing. The other side is a vacant void for us because some of us grew up with our parents. We never seen real functional relationships. We didn't see, mom loving on dad loving on mom, that kind of stuff where the kids go, but you're like, man, we never see none of that because our parents were either separated or they lived in a home separated. But that's a whole other different conversation. Ultimately, there's also the fact that a lot of us don't have the money to sustain ourselves, having financial stability for ourselves. So the idea is not just to sustain the other person, but if we don't know how the hell to maintain ourselves, our own resources, and lacking the certain internal control and discipline, it's hard for us to see ourselves as being quote unquote providers to the other person. And I know, hey, you're making a real sad face, and if people could see your face, you're like, On top of that, I would say the last piece is that a lot of us can't let go of our singleness. That means that a lot of us really perceive, the idea of, hey man, if I hold off long enough, I'm gonna have the next chick. The next chick, there's always another chick. And for that, and that's the truth, guys, like there will always be another girl out there. There's another girl that walks in, whatnot, that you might want, that you might be attracted to, but in truth, in the end of the day, it's just it's like a bag of goods, like the mirage in the sand. It is what you think it is, but in truth, you were never pulling that many chicks anyways, when you were single. So stop thinking that you're about to pull 5 or 6 ones while you're dating, because it just doesn't happen that way. 9 times out of 10, if you weren't pulling people before, you ain't pulling people now. So I would say a lot of guys, technically they're dating people, and to be honest, they are treating women poorly. We're not treating them with love, kindness, and really respect when we waste their freaking time. Like, especially if you ain't closing the deal. If 9 times out of 10, if a girl is decent enough, and 9 times out of 10, women are decent enough. Like they're 7+, whatever. They could cook, they could clean, they're good women. They got good souls, whatever it is. Don't waste their time because you don't know what the hell you're doing with her, and you're just using her just because it makes you feel good. Or it gives you a place to stay, or it gives you somebody to look out for you, or is there somebody to take care of your food and your meal plan. In the end of the day, my friend, stop wasting their time, because that's not respect. That is not love for Black women in our community. They are our sisters, our cousins, our friends, our family members. Like, let's stop treating them like trash, and let's respect their time, because women, unlike guys, they do have a clock. They do have a moment here and there that happens. So make sure that you're not wasting their time because you haven't figured it out yourself. Figure yourself out.
That's
I'm gonna go on mute.
That's me in the background with these ad-libs. So we decided to record this because we were randomly just talking about just relationships, Black men proposing. So the context of this is someone I know. They may not be listening, who knows? But it's in a matter of what is readiness and what does that look like. In this case, this situation we were discussing is we were trying to, I don't want to say pressure, but open the discussion on this colleague of ours who just had a kid. They've been together for a while. She's decent. They're actually a really attractive couple, a handsome couple, beautiful baby. And we're looking at him like, so when you're proposing, not marriage, not going to the courthouse, when you're proposing, and he's just on the fence. And I'm always looking at him just saying, hey, she had your kid.
You're like, I don't know.
Yeah, like, oh, you know what I'm saying?
Whoa, why are you trying to pressure me like that?
Are you pressuring me? You know, I gotta
Why
get
put
the
that
house.
heat on me?
I gotta get the house, and I'm like, but you already in a condo. You own, you're a homeowner though. Like, what are you waiting for? So it's always in the midst of like what is readiness for a man, unlike a woman, right? Because I feel as though when you look at the scope of your relationship, if you both have plans on, tackling your own individual debt, consumer debt, student loans, however, to get to a better financial place, and you're both making in pretty good careers, making good money, then why is there a hesitation of doing that together, even in the midst of having children? And it's very touchy, because when it comes to women about wasting time, that's real, right? And every time I bring something about wasting time, and when someone's very intentional of their time, I think for someone who is unready or not ready enough, it come across as pressure. I'm like, is it really pressure, or you're not the one to look as though in terms of fulfilling or building a life with someone who is ready, right? And we're constantly, as women, we don't want someone to feel pressure, but it is a conversation to have of what readiness look like for you. And in these conversations, it's always about men just running from something or trying to be better. They want this house, they want to make good money. All that is great, but sometimes I kind of feel like men, it's not pursuing or intentionally pursuing or running to something, but actually run away from something that they don't want to commit or want to look at themselves. Because when you talk about bringing in a partner, potentially having a family, you have to look at yourself as a man, because now you are head of a household. You have to take care of someone aside from yourself, or potentially children. That's a lot of responsibility when you think about it. So what does readiness look like for you? And me and Lawrence have these conversations sometimes, lovely have these conversations sometimes, like, what is men running away from? I don't get it. Like, what is it?
Let me come in and try to defend the guys just a
Go
little
ahead.
bit. But it was some good information that you just dropped. Some good, and I think it's fair that we need to have these kind of conversations more and more as men and women, because neither 9 times out of 10 we don't know exactly how we're processing or experiencing each other, right? So some women's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, you should date my homegirl. I'm like, have you dated your homegirl? Because she sucks. like, oh, you should definitely date my homeboy. Like, do you really know what his character is all about? Because he's not
Yeah.
quite there. I think when it comes to the guy conversation aspect, it's something that Lovely hinted at in the previous episode, is the fact that guys had to go through a rite of passage.
Yeah.
That was huge. And I think it's still something that's inherent to a guy's nature, in which we do have to go through this thing. Maybe it's an epiphany. Maybe it's a moment where you spend a weekend with the boys and you completely, you shed the veil of being the youth. You shed all your fears and you move over. And before it used to be incorporated, and it's still today in a lot of different cultures, that you have to go through a rite of passage before you become or be accepted in the community as a man. Because there is a psychological approach to this.
So there's no
It's
benchmark. That's what you're saying, because women
Yeah,
will.
nowadays there is no benchmark. Like,
Okay.
at least in more developed societies, we taking away, we're stripping it out, and there's nothing there anymore. So the guys,
Right.
there's no purpose. There's
Right.
no, like, what do you get to? You say we're running from something, and maybe that's true because we have no idea where we're running to.
Yeah.
Like, dudes are just running around aimlessly. But in truth, you're supposed to go through things that force you to confront the true nature of man. That is that we are scared about something.
Mm,
Once you confront it, that's how you could form the ideal of having courage or being brave. That's
mm.
the only time. And the bravery is not something external. We talked about that too. It's something internal to all of us. Like, yeah, when we fail, how do we feel about that? Do we get back up again? That is something that you learn over time as a man, because you did fail and you realize that the part of growth is about going through things that are challenging for you. We also have to learn to love as men, because in our social structure, especially in America, the way we're structured, you don't see a lot of like love for boys in a sense. And that sounds kind of weird, but basically, like the idea of like camaraderie and true love, like, hey, I love you, bro. That kind of stuff. I'm looking out for you. You don't really see that openness and that vulnerability, and that transfers itself to the way we communicate and interact with women. So a lot of guys have to face instead of running away from how we love, for an indefinite amount of time. How do we open ourselves to that level of love? And that's a big thing. That's a big deal because it's the support structure that we have to get to, as far as do we have the money, do we not? We have to confront the fact that we might be lazy. We've been playing too many video games and we've been wasting our time, and we have to go to work. We got to put in those hours. We got to bring in the paycheck. We got to look out for our friends and families. We got to think about this thing. These are things you have to confront before you bend the knee. And in the process of engagement, going to marriage, the reason why sometimes it takes like the year is because the year is supposed to be a time where you're shedding your old self.
No, Lawrence.
Huh?
Many guys are on a 10-year plan.
Oh yeah, they could be.
Honest,
Yeah, they
not
could be.
1
Yeah,
year. I'm gonna put it out there.
I'll give you some.
5 years.
I'm gonna get to some timelines. I'm gonna get to some timelines, but I'm just gonna give you like sometimes it takes a year for people to really confront who they are and start to shed that weight of who they were in order to be who they're supposed to be, right? So in essence, when I talked about respecting a woman's time, guys, like straight up dating a woman, you should know probably in 2 dates max if she decent enough so you can continue dating. That's 2 dates. If she ain't passing by date 1, you cut off, you go on to the next, move the hell on, don't waste your time, and don't try to smash, because that's going to create some level of connection. You don't want to do it. Like 2 dates in, you should know before you ever smash anyways. That's just the society that we live in. It should take you no more. And I would say that I have to put a timeline, no more than 2 years to settle into who she really is, to know who she really is or who she's really not, or who you really are in a relationship. So you could define, hey, I need to marry her. Year 1, you should kind of already know, that should be all right. By the end of year 1, you should probably go meet her parents, because you need to know what level of toxicity she comes from, or non-toxicity. You have to confront that as well. You got to know what that is. And you might want to look at her dad and say, hey, are you in? Or are you out? That forces you to the situation. If a lot of the ladies, I let this shit slide, but I cursed for a second. Do not let it slide. He has to come with you for the Thanksgiving time, whatever it is. That's a cheap holiday. Go through Thanksgiving for some food, but he has to be vetted by the family. That's just what it got to be. He has to come through. Unless you have a toxic relationship with your family, you don't want to see him. That's one thing. But he needs to come home so people know and identify him, and it puts the pressure on him to become the man he's supposed to be. That's a pressure point. That's hey, are you wasting my daughter's time or not? The mom's going to look at you funny. The dad's going to look at you funny. The uncles, her brothers, everybody's going to look at you. That year 1, critical year. Year 2, you should be on the bended knee. By the time you met the family, you should already start, saving your money, figuring out your budget, figuring out your finances, figure out how much you're going to spend for this engagement ring, however it is. So some people spend, as much as $5,000. Some people could spend $500. It doesn't really matter. It comes down to you and your situation and who she is. You get it down on the knee by year 2. And by year 3, you probably should be married. If I hear people in relationships for like 5 years, 7 years, not married, maybe have kids, co-shackling, whatever, and if you're not getting what you want from this relationship, then you have wasted your time in this relationship. Some women are so deathly afraid of being single and lonely that they will stay with a guy that's abusive as hell. Psychologically, physically, sexually, all of that stuff. Stop staying in relationships because you're so deathly afraid of getting back out there in the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just something that's going on in the community that I'm not for. I'm completely against. I ain't voting. We ain't repealing. We ain't vetoing. We ain't doing none of that stuff. It's completely against it. There should be a timeline, 3 years in the game, and you're getting the hell out.
I think a certain age, you should already know within that year, maybe 6 months.
Oh no, and also like
I
a person,
I think as a certain age, you should.
No, you should know. You should. This is why I said you should know by the year in. Right. But how you get to that point, I would say the max time, which should be those times. But on top of it too,
giving someone 3 years, but I got you.
Yeah. Well, year 1 they kind of already know. But I'm just saying, like the timeline to get to the altar should extend 3 years, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
But ultimately, I would say that at certain points in your life, maybe you're pushing 33, 35, even 40. You should know if you want to be married or not.
Yeah.
We're not, I emphasize are not, capital NOT, are not. If you're not marriage material, and that should be a game plan every time you date anybody. Let them know that you ain't here for a long time. You're here for a short time and a good time, but not a long time. You feel me? Like, hey, you ain't doing all of this all the way through. And the woman should take what he says as pure and utter gospel. If a guy tells you that, I don't know, that means he ain't thinking about you in a long-term sense as marriage. Even if he gets to marry you, 9 times out of 10, it probably won't be that fun.
And we should go ahead.
I don't know what else to say. I tell people I hit them with the
And we should also you made some great points about staying in a relationship just to say we have someone and don't want to be single. And there's a lot to say about that, especially being a woman and unmarried. I have someone, but I'm still unmarried, right? Um, being single or in your singleness, and I think we're gonna touch on an episode like that in the near future. It should be a lot of clarity and a lot of self actualization that you have to confront, because let's be honest, right? Relationship is cool and everything is great, or however your relationship is up and down like a roller coaster, but marriage really exposed who you are, especially if you wasn't living together before you got married or engaged. I have a lot of male friends who realize some things about their wife they didn't know during that courtship, right? Marriage really exposed a lot of things. So don't expect that, once you get married or engaged, it changed the aspect of your relationship. Really be keen in understanding who you are, and understanding too who you decide to choose as a mate, right? There's so much of like just societal pressure to be married, but it's not necessarily just being married. Just be married to the right person that you want to be married to, or to kind of build a life with. But at this point, honestly, Lauren, we talking about marriage. A lot of people can't even get to the relationship portion. You date, you date, you date. I was so intentional, and I'm surprised I didn't scare his ass away. Sorry, but I didn't scare him away. But I was so intentional to understand like my benchmarks, and I'm very clear in every person who have dated me. I do not cohabitate at all. There's no cohabitating here unless we're engaged or getting married or married. You're not cohabitating with me. There's not a 50-50 room. No, there's none of that. I just something I just do not do because of past experiences. I learned my lesson. I understand the assignment. I'm not doing it, right? You have to be really intentional of doing these things, and also intentional to understand it, or I guess acknowledge and identify when someone is wasting your time. And actions speak for itself. You could tell me from here to China, however you love me, care about me, want a future, but your action doesn't align of what you want for the outcome, right? If we're not constantly communicating, we're not dating, we're not going out trying to get to know each other, then what you're telling me is nothing. I take it with a grain of salt, right? And I have a really close girlfriend to tell me like, ATL, how do you bounce back from relationships, or however, like how like you come across like you don't care. I really don't. When you experience trash men or trash experiences in relationship, you understand your worth. Is what I'm saying. You have to go through some bad eggs, unfortunately, to kind of get to know and understand of what you want and who you are, right? And I think a lot of women, they stay in these bad situations and not understanding their worth. At the end of the day, you're choosing this guy. You're choosing this situation. I'm speaking from experience. That's what you're choosing. Understand you are so more than everything that you have experienced, so much more than what he has been treating you as, and you deserve more. So you have to kind of identify those things whenever it come across, right? So it goes from bad relationships, it goes from identifying that I need to do better for myself. choosing the right partner for myself, choosing the right man, and being intentional what I want. If it comes to him as pressure, then he's not for me. Because the next man understands that she is valuable. I need her on my team. Whatever she wants, I will provide for her. And that's the guy that I want for me. So identify those things, because not just marriage, but is this really a good guy for you? And don't have these men waste your time. Just don't do it. Don't have these men waste your time. Lovely, anything? She's not.
Like I'm like, ooh, this is a good episode. But no, everything you guys said is legit. I think for me, and just from past experiences, it's like you're right. It's a choice of it's a matter of choice. And you can literally say, this is not going where I want it to go. Thank you for your services. Thank you for being in my life. But this is where this is gonna end. And I think often as women, there's something about like and being empowered to know that you don't have to just wait until it ends. Like if you see that it's not going, like, oh, I don't want him to think I'm getting pressured or pressuring him in this, that, and the third. And here are years are passing, years are passing, years are passing. And people know their intentions, whether they want to tell you or not. Like there's on the other side, people leave relationships before they leave relationships. So you might be thinking you're in a relationship, they done left. They just haven't moved their feet yet. They just didn't let you know. They've been figuring out how they're going to tell you, but they can be gone. But when we sense those things, sometimes we're like, oh my gosh. And one of the biggest things that I learned in 2 relationships ago before was that oftentimes communication, no one knows what you're not thinking. If there is a problem and you don't address it, and I call it putting it under the rug, it's going to be exposed. And I think what Alainta was alluding to, people not knowing these things about each other, is, were we even really dating? Because sometimes we just spend time together. You're just like, we do what we do, we hang out, but we're not having like meaty conversations. We're not paying attention. And I think what happens is when you get to be in the house with the person, it just becomes like, oh my gosh. But it's like, no, I think people that had good conversations, or they were looking at each other's spending habits, they were looking at each other, the way they treat each other's family or conversations, the more awareness you have, you're like, oh, okay, this is just the type of person my spouse is, with this, that, and the third. I think that it's not that it's easy, but it's easier because you've had real in-depth conversation. But I think a lot of people are dating for the sake of dating, or looking like, we post pictures together, we're always together, but you can be with somebody every day and not know them. And some people don't know how to be vocal, don't know themselves enough to be vocal. So there's so much things that we can go into, but we're not going to make this like a long drawn out podcast, but nonetheless, conversations are important. And if you are in a relationship, want to be in a relationship, you need to know yourself. You need to know who you are and what you're trying to contribute, and be willing to ask questions, like, and being willing to pay attention. Like if a guy is like, doing all these things to you and you keep saying he's going to change, like what's the date? When you need to change your tires, when you need to change the oil, the machine lets you know. In relationships, like these signs are telling you something. So when do you think it's going to change? Like, is there a date? Is there a progress? Is there an end date for this behavior? No. If you keep allowing it, keep accepting it, because how people are like, well, that's just how so-and-so is. Yeah. But that person could be completely different to somebody else, because that person decides, I'm not taking that from them. You ever seen like a guy that was in a relationship before, or a woman, and they just was just like not good, and they end up being with somebody else, and you're like, is that so-and-so? Because somebody was just like, I'm just not taking it. Either you change, or we're not going to be doing this. And sometimes people really realize, saying, I am immature and I need to address that. I am whatever, I need to address that. But oftentimes we accept things that we shouldn't, and then we get in trouble in relationships. But I think it boils down to communication and intention. Those two things, knowing what you want and also being able to communicate it, can help a long way.
Lawrence mentioned about a certain benchmarks in relationship, that between 1 or 3 years, meeting family, Thanksgiving, and all these other things, right? I will say another benchmark is travel with this person. Take them out your house. And I won't even say just travel like some cruise line or anything. Go internationally, like out far, like the other side of the world.
I don't know if we want to say that with the whole Gabby Petito out here in these streets.
Oh,
Like,
No,
I said
I
what
would
I
say
said.
travel. I would say travel with this person because there's a lot of aspects we do not think about when we discuss traveling, right? You have to talk about money, budgeting, planning, right? Passport, visa, whatever you need in terms of traveling.
Stress.
it,
yeah.
it, it's- it becomes stressful. And plus too, if you're going like these different countries like Europe or Africa, however you're traveling this country, it's extensive. And this is coming from a person who live on the other side of the world in country hop. It's very extensive to the body, psychologically. You're tired. It's a lot of things. So you see a person true core of who they are.
Right.
And also it plays on how you guys are together. Can you lean on him if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling tired? Can he lean on you if he unexpectedly done something and you guys have to bounce back? It's a lot of components when it comes to traveling and discussing different cultures, but also being in the midst of somewhere different. And I want every couple, or if you're pursuing someone, or if you're dating, try to travel, do something different, because in different environments,
Act
people
differently.
show up differently.
Yeah, but
However,
Yeah.
if you're getting smacked behind your head though, and he like kind of like to box you, I wouldn't suggest that, because
Ooh,
I think that's what
yeah.
Lawrence was alluding to. Like, that girl ain't make it back home. Like,
Well, let me. Oh, so much problems with these things. Yeah, having conversations about relationship and between men and women can be very problematic because there's so many interactions that are different that people are living in and we might not know enough of. You're right. I think people should be in higher stress situations to see how the person acts and interacts because that's going to really show them you long term who they really are. I don't know if it's in everybody's cash coffers to travel overseas together, that kind of thing, but definitely do spend
nah, they got it.
extend.
They
No,
got it.
yeah.
Nah,
They got
they
it. They
got
got it
it.
at IG. They
They
got it
got
at
it.
IG.
No,
IG
don't,
showed me that you
don't,
got it.
no. We put in our audience and our listeners
Okay,
up there. They
okay.
got it. They got
Okay, all right, all right. You can definitely do some domestic stuff in cities, especially ladies that want to be a little bit more safe. I would say go into major cities, populated. It's always easy to go travel to New York. That's gonna be toxic enough as the space, so that's cool.
DC is
Hey,
cool though. DC is nice because you can travel there
yeah.
alone or where and there's
Oh
so
yeah,
much
and you get to
free
see all the
stuff.
the museums for
Yeah,
free.
yeah,
It's all good. It's all good.
yeah. So there's
That's how
places.
you got your last bay. That's how you got it. Yeah. So yeah, but I would say this, especially to what you lady were saying to co-sign. A relationship can kill you, and that's really what it is.
literally.
A bad relationship can really kill your potential, kill your psychology, kill your direction and your impact in life, your purpose. Overall, a relationship that is very much not for you can kill you to the point where I think this week Angela Simmons, I think she was trending, and as well as the other woman, I forget her name right now. You know, it's not in my mind, but Angela Simmons was talking about her experience of being with somebody, and she was almost pushed out of car and all that stuff. So her experience, yeah, it's some weird stuff. And I'm like, ladies, stop sitting on the sideline with your homegirls. Talk about this. If you're not comfortable with talking to the dudes about it, talk to other women about this because this guy should be banned from dating, marriage, and procreation. Like literally banned. Women need to start understanding how to completely cancel out certain men because that level of behavior, I'm not too sure you can heal that. I'm not too sure that changes the core of who that person might be and might become. If the person is already on the threshold of hurting and abusing other women or yourself, they will end up doing the same to somebody else. Let's cancel their ass. Call them by name. Have, circles, sister circles. I don't care. Do what you can do. I swear to you, please do so. Because if you're allowing the next girl to enter into a situation where she might be physically harmed, psychologically abused, or even end up dead, it's gonna be on you because you can stop this. I can't tell you what to talk about and to who you could talk to. Like, talk to your therapist. But we need to cancel out guys that are behaving not part of the man code. That's not even part of the man
What man
code.
code?
To
Like
add,
that's
What
the
man code?
that's what I mean. Like, this is the code that you're supposed to live by as a man if you go through the rites of passage in which you understand who you really are. Like, we have a potential of being quote unquote a monster. Knowing that as men, you
So
internalize the
we have to call
understanding.
them out. I'm going to push back on that, Lawrence, because we have to call them out as women and to make sure they potentially don't treat someone else like that. But yet the men in their circles are not taking accountability
Nine
to
times,
tell them that
I'm
they're
gonna tell you,
trash and
I'm gonna tell you this.
they're
I'm gonna tell you
treating women
this.
as trash.
Let me tell you this. We don't experience our friends. Remember, I said that before. Like, we
yeah.
don't
Don't you
experience our
really?
friends. No, and I'm being not
But
fair
that's
as
a real
possible
thing,
with you.
Alainta. That's a real thing.
Like, like, we
They
don't
know
know
some of
who
the things that their
no,
friends
we
are
do.
doing,
Like,
though.
sometimes you like you do the if you talk about like smacking girl, he didn't you recognize that he didn't mean that. Some 9 times out of 10, you don't know the person who they really are behind closed door. A lot of those abusers, men and women, could be abusers. In the behind the scene, they hide who they are very well. I had people in around me that I've heard that cheated. I'm like, how the hell? Like, I've never seen that. That I've known you for years. I would never would expect in a million years that you would do something this vow or whatever you done, or maybe even have like a second kid or something on the side. You're like, I've known you for years, bruh. Like, I never knew that this is who you are. So we don't experience our friends. So it's hard for us as guys to police the dude, right?
But
We
we
could
have to police them.
no, I'm not saying you
No, I think there's a context like both sides. Like men need to, like if you know your friends are doing it, call
that
them
part.
out. But I think there's also something I want to say about like our side and women. There is sometimes some women that feel like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that he acts like this with, and that must mean he really loves me. Or there's this weird part of their brain that's like giving
I don't want him
kudos.
to get in trouble with the cops. I don't want that to
Yeah,
happen to
things like that.
him.
And it's like, no, they need to be held accountable for these things. And as well as we need to stop saving face. I think that's what needs to be done. And maybe with the men, you guys need to have accountability and not just assume, well, because he doesn't say he's doing it, maybe it needs to be asked like, yo, what's up with you and so and so? Like, how is your relationship? Like these conversations. I'm not saying that the person's gonna say, yeah, I'll be smacking her every night, but I think more of those conversations maybe need to be brought up because maybe you'll start to pick up on some type of comments because there's some like underlying things that someone says. You're like,
Yeah.
that's questionable. And I think that might be a little bit like, no, I've heard some guys say some things, and I'm like, yeah, I heard him call his like wife a B word, right? That's not normal.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, you're right in the sense of I guess the only thing in my experience with my peer group, whatnot, either being Marine Corps friends in college or even friends beyond college, I don't necessarily hear that conversation. And I think I've seen what, Atlanta is referring to because I see it on, those viral videos sometimes where a guy smacks a woman and his friends were there. I think bad people, some bad people hang around with each other and kind of in that environment and they don't check each other. Like, I don't know them directly. Like, I might not ever interact with them directly. I can still, like, in this podcast, we talked about it multiple times where I call men trash and I hold them accountable here. Hopefully that message spreads.
Well, let's scale it down a bit because we're extremely saying that specifically men who abuse women. But I'm really talking about the accountability of when you're knowing that they're cheating or knowing that they're treating their girls like trash.
No,
That's what I'm saying.
that's what I mean.
They're really treating the women like trash. They don't have to beat on them.
I'm not saying it's not just about the beating. I'm talking about if they're not good men, 9 times out of 10, bad men hang around other bad men. That's it's weird. It's just something that happens. Like hang on, minded people. They just kind of do things. I don't necessarily run in that group. I don't stay. If I maybe run next to that group, I wouldn't stay in that group. It's just I don't interact with that. So it's hard for me to police somebody that I have no interactions with. The best I can do is offer advice on this podcast, offer advice online, social media, let everybody know, not just men, not just women, but even men, look out for each other. Look out for what you're doing because that information you might not be getting it from your friends. Maybe that's the first time they heard about this. The way we can be as men is on this podcast. I don't know. But ideally, all I can say for women that are experiencing these men, right? And because they're finding men on Tinder, or they're dating whoever, and they're bringing it back into the fold. If you can't talk to the guys in your life, meaning let the guys know, watch out for you, whatever it is. And I get it because you feel a certain way about it. Talk to the ladies around you to ensure that the group of women in this community now know that this guy has a propensity of doing something really weird, either, physically, emotionally, psychologically, or even financial abuse, whatever it is. Let them know, because that person needs to be, quote unquote, castrated from that society. And I had to use the word castrate, like castrated for that society. So it's not to say that women are the only people that I'm empowering to do this. I just want all of us to win and be happy. I don't want us to live in a place where negativity and toxicity is fostered because we lost the ability to speak and the ability to listen. Damn, we got real deep. I got real deep. I had to lean into that.
Went a few places.
Oh, it went left, far left, like far right. Got some
these shorts are getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
Equal opportunity, though. As much as we place blame and point fingers, as most times, unfortunately, with social media, is place blame on women and point fingers. And we, as a woman, I know I have to take accountability, but I want men to take accountability as well. I can't justify your behavior anymore. I can't call you out on your behavior anymore when you have men around you who are just, accepting that behavior, knowing that you have been doing this, knowing that this is a habit, right? So that's all I'm saying. Let's give the same energy to
that same. Well, you hear me all the time. I give the same energy to everybody, like the same energy, the same push. I definitely want that people will have better relationships in their singleness, or even in couples time, whatever it is. Just have a better relationship with yourself, with your your psychology, psychiatry, or your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health. All of that needs to be in better balance, because the relationship itself is just based off of two people coming together. But if those two people are unbalanced and one person is rotten to the core, it could really kind of, rotten the other fruit in the house. So make sure you step up. I don't know if anybody want to close it out, because it kind of got a little sad there for a second.
I said a lot.
I'll close it out and say thank you guys for listening. As usual, just know that we're here to be supportive to the community. We will be highlighting men that are doing great things. I need to put that in there, because next thing you know, they just always trashing Black men over there on the Financial Griot podcast. That's not the case. We just want
I trash some women too here and there. Damn,
we're equally trashing people.
I'm out here bashing women too. Like, what?
So I say this to say that we want more accountability, because what ends up happening is if we don't talk about the things that need to be held accountable, we end up doing a disservice to our community. We know that there's people that are doing great things, that are giving their all. But we just wanted to highlight some of the things. We need to push them to the forefront so we can weed out the bad apples so that we can have a better harvest. So you guys have a great weekend. Do whatever you do, or whenever you listen to this. If this is a Monday, Tuesday, whenever you listen to this, just have a great day. And again, this is another episode of the Financial Griot podcast, and we out.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Griot podcast, powered by the Wealth Builders Collective.